The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello friends, thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week we'll talk about Austin's 3-1 loss against RSL, but more importantly, we're going to preview the US Open Cup final on Wednesday versus Nashville, and then the game after that, which we're not thinking as much about but still need to cover, is the game on the weekend against St. Louis City. My name's Landon Cottam, and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
As normally, maybe not always, but I appreciate definitely the assist from Mike. Last week we had some family stuff come up and kind of last minute had to drop out, but he dropped in and did a great job, and it was a good thing to be able to listen to actually back the next day for me. But this week I'm in Vancouver and I'm staying at the hotel that is like right next to BC Place, and I'm taunted by like Ryan Gaul banners hanging all over the place around here. So like and nobody on this trip cares as much about this team and this league as me, so they're just like, stop talking about the Whitecaps, man. I'm like, but the Whitecaps are like, I feel like are just like, I never feel like we have a chance. I feel like they just clobber us every time we play. And so like, I feel very hurt to be here in Vancouver.
It hurts even worse to know that our Verde Best Ball League that the North End boys put on, we are so excited to have Ryan Gauld picked, and he's not played. He played 3 games at the beginning of the season and hasn't touched the field again.
Yeah.
And so it like is double painful. I was going to make the joke that like, well, guess what, Jeremiah, you scored as many goals as him this season, but I don't think that's true. I think he got one in those first 3 games.
He did get one. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if you got to watch this game live with everything going on. I did not get to watch this one live and had to watch it on replay. And given what I did and how this game went, I think I made the right decision by doing this one. Me and Mike Cragnola went to a big punk rock and roll music concert, and we bought these tickets several months ago, and I was worried that like, okay, this is the end of the season. All these games are going to matter quite a bit. Luckily, Austin has put themselves in a situation where they can rest and rotate and maybe not take this game as seriously and lose it and it not matter. But me and Mike got to see a really cool punk show that I am too old to be doing anymore, and like still very tired today, 2 days later, and recovering still. But it was a good time.
So let me ask about the show. Was it like somebody that Mike knew from like the good old days, or is it like a current punk band? Do they have modern punk bands? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
It's
a Canadian band called PUP, P-U-P. Mike got me into them actually, but it's kind of like if like the pop punk music that I listened to as a teen and college student, it's like if that music like kind of grew up and got a little bit smarter, still as like stupid and aggressive, but smarter also. It's like that, but I underestimated what the atmosphere is going to be like. Mike, like met up with Mike. Mike is, I don't know how many listeners know this, but Mike is like grew up in the Boston hardcore scene and would regularly come home with like black eyes and bloody lips from concerts, not getting in a fight, just being at a concert. And so I knew that like me and Mike were maybe not going to spend the whole evening together. And so a song would come in and he would just look at me and say, bye, and just run off. And I stayed at the back. But luckily we found some other Los Verdes folks. And Logan, who I think you've met before, and then Melissa, who I know you know, they're like Mike, like we're punk hardcore kids growing up and we're really into this kind of stuff. So we got to hang out with them. And I just stood back while the rest of them would run into the mosh pit and come back and say, oh, I'm too old to do this anymore. And then run back in 2 songs later.
But not stop doing it. I love that. So I feel like you're watching of the team match the team's effort on Saturday night. So maybe let's lead. Last week y'all talked about whether we would expect to see Austin prioritize the cup or the match on Saturday. Then I think after this show came out, Nico had the midweek presser, and it felt like he made it pretty clear that the cup was going to be the priority. And I think he talked about Dessler, and I felt like it's very certain that he was going to preserve the guys for the match during the week. And I think when we see the lineup and when we see the energy and everything else, like that absolutely came to pass.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I'm not generally an advocate for that kind of thing, but given the situation, like the gauntlet that this team has had to go through the last couple of weeks with international duty and the cup game and then travel and all that kind of stuff, it's the right thing to do, and you kind of just have to mentally prepare yourself for what that might mean for the result, and hopefully you all did, because that's what we got. And like I said before, like Austin has earned the right to take this game a little less seriously and be okay with not coming away with the result. It didn't make it more fun to watch, but maybe made it slightly less painful to watch. Again, I don't know. I didn't watch it live, so I knew what I was getting into when I started the replay. But yeah, it seems like we should have been prepared for it going in.
Yeah, and I think these rewatches are always harder when you know that how it's going to turn out, and it's going to turn out poorly. And you're just like, look, you're looking for moments maybe when things go wrong. And I feel like, and we'll probably get into this after the break, like, and those moments were from the start. Like, I don't feel like there was like a situation where Austin was like super aggressive and this thing breaks bad or whatever. And honestly, both teams pretty early on were like really low energy and not doing a lot. But this was it was like an inevitable slog to the finish by the time we got to it. But like you said, you shouldn't be surprised by it. And it really doesn't hurt Austin, I don't think, at all on the table, and really doesn't hurt Austin that much in terms of just like potential for where Austin's going to finish this year.
Yeah, we had the mathematical chance to clinch by winning the game, but that doesn't really change going into this weekend. And we got the rest that we need. We got to rotate some guys, gave CJ Fodrey a start that he deserved and maybe wouldn't have gotten in other circumstances. So we got what we needed out of it, if not the points that we wanted out of it.
Okay, so let's talk about what this week means. Now let's transition out of that one, at least in the opening, and talk about U.S. Open Cup final at home on Wednesday night versus Nashville. And we'll get into the preview again later on. But like at the high level, what are we thinking about this week?
I'm so excited, and like I think you know this about me, and our listeners will know this about me. I am not a man who feels high highs or super low lows. I'm pretty even keeled most of the time. I am genuinely excited about this. It is such a cool moment for the city, such a cool moment for the fans, and to play in any final, but especially this specific final for a young team. And I think Nico Estevez said in one of the recent media availabilities that this tournament has such a cool, interesting history that if we can win it, Austin FC's name is then part of that history. And that's really special.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's like the tournament's been played since 1914. I know a lot of, maybe more casual folks or like don't like quite get it, but like it's a big deal for the city, and it's a big deal for these players, and it's a big deal for this team. And and there's like this excitement. There's a focus on Austin that you get out of this that we haven't necessarily had otherwise. And it's a little bit like the All-Star game, right? Like,
yeah,
I knew when Austin got the All-Star game that everybody's going to come to town. And there's going to be all these events and activations and stuff like that. But in the moment when it happened, I was like, oh, wait, now I finally understand what that means. And it feels like a little bit with this U.S. Open Cup final, too, where the attention of like the league and of the media and, everybody else is now upon Austin again. And so hopefully everybody just really enjoys it.
Yeah. And in a way that makes Austin shine a little bit, right? Like I very much feel like the All-Star game did that, especially with all the folks who came to town. I don't know if a midweek Open Cup final is going to bring as many people from out of the city, but people will certainly be watching. And if you've checked SeatGeek for like resale tickets, which is a pretty good gauge of what the crowd's going to be like, it's going to be a good crowd. Like normally there's supporters section tickets for super cheap or tickets here and there. I filtered it to just buying one seat. They are all expensive and there are not very many of them. So I'm expecting a really packed house on Wednesday night, which it's great to see that if this team is doing things that matter, that the city will show up again. And the club has not given the city much reason to show up over the last few years, and have done it on and off this season. But this is a moment where the city is still paying attention, and the city still knows what's going on and says, okay, y'all are doing something that matters. I'm there. And that's cool to see, and like reassuring in a way.
Yeah, and that is a really good point. And this is like this trip I'm on. A lot of these people are it's a Chamber of Commerce trip. Like, and a lot of these folks who were involved maybe in like bringing the team to town, like our fans, and have tickets. And some have told me like, oh well, I haven't been in a while, or I haven't paid as much this year. But like all of them know that this is happening on Wednesday night, so it's a chance to re-engage. And you're right, it's really cool that Austin still has the potential to do that, and it would be great if Austin did the things that like created this kind of excitement more often. But we should enjoy Wednesday night like in the moment, in isolation of everything else.
Yeah, we should absolutely enjoy it, right? Like, this is a cool thing. I know it's a weekday. Just anecdotally, I know a lot of my friends are planning on getting into the area early. They're doing some concerts out in the little amphitheater beforehand. They're trying to make an atmosphere around the stadium. I'm hoping that work permits us to get there a little bit early and to really just be there for a second and take in the energy, take in the moment. Hopefully, everyone listening gets a chance to do that too, because it's a special moment. All of the players also seem up for it. Like, this is it's the first major trophy that the team is getting a chance to play for. I know that some people might say Copa Tejas would count as a major trophy. A, I disagree. B, I've never heard of that.
That's like, so you spotlighting McGuire consulting a read right now by going into this?
But that's special. And like, I know we're going to go in and enjoy it. I would encourage fans to go in with an open heart and an open mind and just try to take in the moment. Let's hope that the players come in up for it. They seem like they are. Let's hope that they show up that way and reward the fans with a show, or with a match that we can all enjoy and be proud of.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And I think let's go ahead, take a break, and we're going to talk a little bit about the RSL game. Maybe what we learned from it. Maybe we learned nothing from it. I don't really know. And then
I learned some stuff. So we'll get into some stuff I learned here. Maybe we'll all learn something together.
Okay, cool. And then we'll talk more in detail about Nashville. We'll talk a little bit about St. Louis. And we have a little bit of Austin FC news for the first time, I feel like, in a few weeks. Yeah. Just as far as contract stuff goes. So hang tight, and we'll be right back.
No one is around.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FVF Law, the official injury lawyers of Austin FC.
FVF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education. And they have their own podcast called Summary Judgment that you can check out wherever you get your podcasts. And so I meant to, had I been on last week, I would have talked about this. But there's this event I go to every year, and it's called Austin Gives. And it celebrates the companies that do the most to give back to the community during each year. And we were a finalist and did not win. And it is not a privilege to be nominated, and it really annoys me when we are up for awards and we don't win. But you know who did win was FVF Law, won in their category. So congratulations to FVF for exhibiting their greatness at giving back, and hopefully they enjoyed their trophy that I did not get.
You can go to FVF.law to find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm and why they are canonically better than Jeremiah Bentley.
Ouch.
And why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's FVF.law. Amplify Credit Union is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. As a credit union, Amplify has no shareholders or parent companies. That means more of your money stays in the community.
Amplify has been the home of fee-free banking since 2022. Their free checking accounts come with 0 overdraft fees or minimum balance, which means Amplify's fee-free checking accounts help you get more mileage from your everyday spending.
Amplify membership is open to any Texas resident. Learn to trust your bank again at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more and to register for free parking at the Amplify Esperanza branch on game day, go to www.goamplify.com/moontower-soccer.
But probably also not on Wednesday, because when we talked to Amplify when the season started, not think they put that one in their drop down. So if you want free parking for the next home match, do that. probably not Wednesday night.
All right, we are back. We're going to talk through this RSL match. I know we said there's a lot of reasons why we shouldn't take too much away or put too much stock into this, but there's still something. I think we got to see some guys start that we haven't seen. We got to see some scenarios come up. So I think there's still some things to learn from this one.
Yeah, let's get into it then. So I think at the pregame, we kind of talked about this. We wondered what the health situation of the players would be like, whether Austin would preserve everybody that maybe was feeling a little bit of a knock for the Open Cup match on Wednesday, given the short turnaround. That's what we did see. We also touched on Austin having a chance to clinch the playoffs with a win. Like we'll get into, like despite the loss, Austin has the same chance to clinch the playoffs again, like coming up this weekend with a win. So don't lose out a lot on that. And I think the answers to the first question come out when we see the lineups. This is Stuver, Hindsight, Cascante, and Djordjevic, Kolmanich, Dubasarski, Sabovic, and Gallagher, and then Rubio, Fodrey, and Obrian up top. My first question for you is: so are we five at the back again in this one?
Yeah. This was very much the 5 at the back defensively, and like those guys were pushing forward in the attack. We weren't on the attack a lot, but when we were defending, it was very much that like 5-2-3 look that we've seen in a handful of the last few matches.
And then up top, like this, I think this was on FOTMob I got, but is Rubio central up top in the real world?
No, he played as that left, like tucked in winger.
He did play as the winger, right?
Yeah, Fodrey was the 9. So it was Rubio on the left, Obrian on the right, Fodrey in the middle.
Let's get into, I think we talked about, like, what was, the first shot was maybe 20 minutes in or something from either team. Is that right?
Yeah, and Austin only had 1 shot in the first half period. So not a great game period, but like a couple, RSL gets a few semi-dangerous chances early on that don't amount to anything. We're thinking, okay, we're getting into halftime here. Austin's not been great, but if we can hold on to a draw through a certain part of the game and we can bring on some starters, maybe they can pull out a win. RSL had other ideas. Fate had other ideas. When RSL gets a kind of lucky goal right before halftime, this is Brian Ojeda. RSL was the better team, but I think it's not harsh to say this was a fluky goal here. Ojeda receives the ball in a good space and kind of that half space pocket just outside of the box, but there's no real passing options. Sabovic is in a good position to contest the shot and probably block the shot. He does block it, but not good enough, I guess. And it deflects off of him. Stuver's leaning the way that the shot was shaped to go, which was far post. And so he's leaning that way, but the deflection takes it near post and it just sneaks right inside that goal. Stuver recovers and goes that way, but it's not quick enough, and just kind of unfortunate for Stuver on that one. Austin could have done a little better in the build up to that to kind of close off that space, but again, not much else they could have done there.
So in that one, then Austin goes into the half down 1-0. Not a lot else comes out of that. And then, like you talked about, like Austin, you would hope that Austin would like stay either even or 1 goal down, because they've shown a little bit of resilience lately on actually being able to come from behind. And then maybe get some guys on that can make a difference, which the subs would come in around 4 subs around 62. But the second goal has happened before then also.
Yeah, this one is DeAndre Yedlin in the 50th minute. On this one, Diego Luna receives the ball running away from goal. He pulls Djordjevic with him, because remember, when we're in this back 5 shape, oftentimes what happens is the players, whatever position they start in, it's the players playing in those half space pockets. Often it's the wider center backs that are chasing them into midfield. And so when Luna receives the ball in that space, Djordjevic follows him, but then Luna plays a 1-touch pass ahead to Gonçalves, and so essentially just takes Djordjevic out of the play there. Gonçalves is driving at the back line. Since Djordjevic is out of the picture, I think Biru thinks, okay, I'll slide inside to cover for him. He maybe didn't need to. We were already marked up 2 or 3 against 2 in the middle there, but Biru is inside playing as a third center back then. He doesn't notice DeAndre Yedlin sneaking up on the backside. Jogo Gonçalves does notice him and slips in a really clever pass. Like the way he had his hips shaped, it very much looked like he's focused on like the near side of the box there, but then plays that slip pass across the box. And because Biru had tucked in, there's nobody there. Yedlin's able to hit it first time, absolutely smashes it. Like, you know, I'll talk about John Gallagher as a hammer and not a scalpel. DeAndre Yedlin is absolutely a hammer and not a scalpel, and he hammers this ball, hits it so hard. It's like in a position where I think maybe a bit of a spoiled take from an Austin fan might be like, oh, it was within an arm's reach of Stuver, but it was hit so hard that there's almost no time to react there. I don't think you can blame Stuver here. Even if you do want to blame the reaction from Stuver, I think the bigger point is how Yedlin gets an uncontested shot from there. And it's because Luna beats us in the midfield there, and then Biru tucks in a little bit too far when he should have noticed that Yedlin was sneaking up on that side. And I think this is a moment to point out some of the like defensive lapses here and maybe file this under things I've learned here. But in this like 5-2-3 shape, the front 5 is playing very compact. And so they're pressing, but it's like just past midfield. So it's not a super high press, but they are still very far from our back line. And so there's this huge gap between the front 5 and the back 5. Luna drops into that space, and he's such like a buzzy little bee, just always moving. If he passes it, there's always a move on the other side that you have to follow. Or if he's in space, he just moves so much and just finds those little pockets. And then also he's so clean on the ball that when you play your average MLS player into a space there, it's one thing. When you play a guy like this into that space, he's able to compound the space and the time that he has because of how clean and quick he is. And so it just makes the space feel bigger when he gets it there. And moments like this lead to this goal and then the third goal as well. But I think this is something that Austin FC needs to look at on film and say, like, we need to keep those defensive lines more compact, like vertically compact, where if that front 5 is pressing and pushing up, the back line needs to notice it and push up with them and compact those lines, because giving an average MLS player that much space in midfield is fine. Giving Diego Luna that space is deadly, and we proved that twice on this night.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that on this one and the other goal. The interesting thing, just looking at the stats on that, like Diego Luna does not get a lot of assists. I think this was his second and third assist on the year. So I don't think going into this game I was worried about him like playing this type of game as much as I was him getting behind people and scoring goals. But like this just shows he can do it in multiple ways. And he's super fun to watch when he's not playing against us.
And I think a lot of times he's like the pass before the assist too. So maybe he's not getting credit for it, but maybe 2 or 3 moves before he opened up space that led to the ability to score a goal. So I think that's Brian Dunsteth was saying this on the broadcast, but it's like, is he playing poorly or is he just not getting on the scoreboard? Which I think as Austin fans, we can understand a little bit, right? Like there's been a lot of Austin players who are like, well, all of them are bad. It's like, well, no, a few of them are doing well. It's not counting for anything, but like Owen Wolff for a lot of the season played super well without getting any stats out of it. And I think Luna kind of falls into that same category.
I would think like Osman Bukhari's entire time in Austin in some ways is the story of that too, right? Where like he's super dangerous and makes a lot of dangerous moves and then they don't always pan out, but it doesn't mean he's not being productive in a way that not everybody else is. So after that Austin's down 2-0. This is where we get the subs like wholesale, really. So it's Danny Pereira for Dubrasarski, Uzuni for CJ, Osman Bukhari for Hutter O'Brien, Owen Wolff for Diego Rubio. So you're basically looking at your best 11 available at this point. But it's already a team that's down 2-0 and a team that doesn't have a lot to play for and a team that has 30 minutes left in the match.
Yeah, and we look better for a stretch there where We're keeping the ball a bit more, which we weren't really able to do before then. We're getting into the attacking third, but still not really being able to put anything together, which it's hard to do when you're down that much. You're coming in cold and trying to do it. And it ended up not being enough because of the 2 goals. And then we give up a third goal not long after that, too. This one is Victor Olatunji. Diego Luna is a problem again on this one. He finds some purchase in a pretty tight space, turns, plays a ball through. And so looking at what leads up to this one, we were criticizing Biru for his decision-making on the last play. I'm going to do it again on this play. If you watch him as Diego Luna gets ready to play this through ball, Biru is just slowly jogging back towards our goal. There's not a run outside that he really needs to track. There is a player wide, but he's 10 or 15 yards off of our back line. Biru's just not paying attention. He's just slowly jogging back and not watching his center backs. And so as Olatunji kind of curves his run to get ready to run in behind, Luna is shaping to play a pass. Our center backs step and look like they're going to keep him offside, but Biru, because he just kept jogging, he wasn't paying attention, keeps him onside by like 2 yards. And this ball's into a ton of space. Stuver comes off of his line, but Olatunji beats him to it, flicks it past Stuver with a really like deft little touch that puts it in for the third goal. And Olatunji was a menace on this night. Like he's a handful, and like I'm not looking forward. He's a new signing this year. I'm not looking forward to playing him next year because he's a bad dude, but gets a goal that he probably deserved to score earlier in the game. But again, like Biru needs to be more aware here. It was an easily avoidable thing if he's just clocking his back line. I think this is one of the downsides of this back five of it's easier to keep 4 people in sync with an offside trap than it is 5. And I've seen some sketchy offside traps that we haven't been punished for in the last few games, and we did get punished this time.
And so when you say that, do you feel like that? I mean, obviously it's harder just on its face, but do you feel like there's something about? Okay, I'm sorry. I feel like there's something about Gary Beater that makes it extra hard for the way he plays. Yeah,
I think both. Yeah, it's harder to organize 5, and even harder when one of those 5 is a spacey Brazilian who wants to attack instead of defend.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was like, I don't really need to caveat this. I think the answer is both for sure. And I guess maybe one of the reasons you have this intense man love for Mikael Dessler is he can be a disciplined part of that 5 in a way that Beater is not.
That's right.
When he's in. We didn't talk about this too. We get I think for the first time, is his first wolf on wolf action, both Owen and Tyler.
I'm pretty sure it
subbing
is.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, and they actually had some duels against each other too, which was cool. It would have been fun if there were more opportunities for that and a more high stakes game, but they did get a few chances to go up against each other.
I mean, my greatest dream is to Owen make one of those little nutmegs that we've seen out of him on his older brother. I mean, what great little brother energy would have it been to see that.
As a younger brother, that would have been so delicious to see that happen. I do feel a little bit bad for Tyler because, I mean, he's paying attention. Like Tyler is now a sub for RSL, and Owen is on the trajectory that he's on. It has to be tough for an older sibling to watch that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Wait. Oh, that reminds me of an Owen thing, and I don't think this was out last week, but the 22 under 22 came out during the past week, right? And so Owen is, I feel like, been on this list because he's starting and young in the past, but never been very high. But this version of it, he's what, 5 or 6 or something? He's
I think he was 5 on Matt Doyle's. I don't remember what the official list was, but as much as I like to disagree with Matt Doyle on certain things, I do like the way he does his under 22 list, which is we're not basing this fully on potential. It's what are you actually doing in games and in the league? And he had Owen at 5. I agree with that. I mean, it's Alex Freeman. Do you remember who else was ahead of him? But it's guys who are playing a lot, are being regular contributors to their team. And so I don't know that there's an argument to put Owen at 1, but top 5, I think is pretty fair. There's some other folks who put him lower, and I think those are the folks who maybe take into account potential or what they might be. But I think if you're taking into account product on the field, Owen absolutely deserves to be top 5 this year. And I think he was like 12 or something last year. And that was based on potential mostly, I think. And just like,
Right.
okay, young, like you said, young guy playing minutes. But this year it's like, no, young guy, a real problem for other teams pretty regularly.
Yeah, it was really good to see him get that recognition. I think so back if the match and Gary Buter, so he also picks up a yellow in the 89th minute, which I believe is going to keep him out against St. Louis City.
And it
seemed not super necessary. Okay, yeah,
because it's like if it's a tight game, yeah, maybe. I'm not. Maybe it's like a breakaway moment. There are players behind him, so. But when we're down, were we down 3-0 already?
Or was yes, we're down 3-0. No, it was 3.
We're down 3 already.
Yeah,
know the situation. And I think that applies to all 3 of the moments we've talked about here. Know that this game is gone and that you're on 4 yellows and you're going to get suspended if you do this one. And he does it anyway. And so we're going to miss him against in St. Louis, which I think we can get more into this when we talk about the Open Cup final, but this performance might have talked his way out of a start in the Open Cup final. Because Kolmanich has been solid. Like, he's not been a liability, really. And Biru, as high as his ceiling is, he's also got these moments in him, which are just stupid.
Yeah, and can you imagine, I think when Kolmanich gets his extension, 2 years ago? Or last year, maybe even? I don't remember when it was. It was pretty recent. And we're like, why are we assigning this guy an extension? And then to his credit, he's developed in a way that I don't know that either of us thought that he would be developing. So, yeah, maybe it's his turn again. I guess let's talk about the extra time Austin goal. I had originally written this headline as rule review Austin's 3-0 loss, forgetting that Austin has picked up this garbage time goal.
Yeah, so this one starts on one of a few stupid short corners that Austin tries on the night. I know we've had the argument about short corners. Austin mostly did bad short corners in this game. I think there was one where they play it quick to Bukhari and he puts in a quick cross. Fine with that, because you're getting a cross in from a more advantageous position. But if you play it short and then don't get a cross in at all, that's not worth it. And so this is what happens here. We play a short corner, nothing happens, pass it around a few times. It ends up with Danny receiving in the midfield, not too different from what he did in that last game when he assisted the MLS assist for the CJ assist for the Zuni winner. But plays in a very similar cross. Savovic makes a nice run, puts in a nice header into the box, well placed, that sneaks under Cabral's arm. And I think that's Savovic's first goal for the club, right?
Yes.
Not in the way that he would have liked for it to happen. Doesn't get to celebrate, doesn't want to celebrate. Nice moment, but it's hard to be too happy about it right now.
Yeah, well, and I do appreciate that what is he at? 29 matches, 1 goal. Yes, that's right. First time. Yeah, don't be the guy giving the big first down marker celebration when your team's losing by 4 touchdowns. And I feel like he was good in being that. And then, yeah, I mean, that's kind of it, on the night. I don't know how many things we liked. I wrote conserving the team to go for the cup final is the one thing I liked. I don't know if I can find anything else out of it.
Nobody got hurt. Players got rest. All a lot of our starters got a 30-minute run out to keep their legs fresh. That's a thing to like, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I felt we're so spoiled, but this night was not Brad Stuver's best night.
I mean, I don't think he was bad. I don't know that he could have done much different or to change these. Honestly, the one that I might say he could have done better on was the third one. When that ball gets through, could he have been off his line a little bit quicker and gotten to that ball faster than Olatunji? But it is still pretty marginal. And once you get to a certain area, if you think there's a chance he can get a touch on it, you're in either penalty or red card or giving up a goal area. And so then just, get big and try to stop it. And the finish was really nice. But I think on the first one, the deflection makes me not criticize him. The second one, an uncontested shot that is an absolute pile driver. I don't know that he could have done much there. So I'm not very critical of Stuver in this game.
I would say this is the first time in a while that I don't remember him making a save that he had no business making. I mean, this is like that was saying, like it's the mildest of criticism for him.
It is like this, like I was saying earlier, like the spoiled Austin FC fan take, though, right?
Yeah.
Of like, why didn't you make an impossible save, Brad?
Yeah.
And he maybe even did make. I don't remember. Maybe he did make a really good save, but yeah, I don't know. I'm okay with his performance here.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about Savovich. I don't think he played super well. It's really frustrating because there in Austin FC's history, there's been a lot of players who we just like weren't sure if they were good. And it turned out like over the span of time that a lot of them were indeed not good. There's other players where having just like watched their body of work in the leagues that they came from, I'm quite convinced that they're good. Uzuni falls into this category. We've finally seen some flashes of him being good here. Savovich is still a player that I am convinced is good. He is talented. He has some really good qualities, but he just seems to be stuck in second gear all the time and makes poor decisions, just does dumb stuff. And then, like I said, like he's never seen a calf that he didn't want to kick and just gives up stupid fouls in stupid areas all the time. Then acts like he's never been called for a foul before. And it's just really frustrating. But I mean, the way he's played in the last couple of games, like I wouldn't be even putting him into the game in the Open Cup unless you absolutely have to, right? Like he's not inspired much faith to me, even as much talent as I think he has, just his performances have not bore that out.
Yeah, he has not put it together. And I don't know if it's a weather thing. It seems like somewhat these guys are struggling, having issues like with dealing with Austin. I know he particularly doesn't seem to love it, or if it's just like fitness, I don't know what it is, but it seems like Austin, yeah, maybe has better options. And then I don't know, he's starting his first match. We should expect a lot out of him. We didn't get a lot out of CJ Fodrey either. He did get Austin's one shot in the first half, which I guess maybe he deserves credit for.
I'll put this in things I like and things I didn't like, is that CJ got the start. I mean, he deserves it just on paper, just the way he's been playing. Like, you got to give the guy some minutes. And this is a perfect game to do it, right? But Nico said in the post-game press conference, asking, I think it was a question about like some of these guys, like what do you think they did? And he said, in this particular game, any individual judgment and analysis of any of the players, I think, is not fair. And I agree with that, because like a lot of the guys, I think it was probably 6 starters on the bench, right? Like clear-cut guys who are regular starters were on the bench. A lot of the guys who started are guys who want the chance to start, but I think they'd probably prefer to get their chance to start with other starters.
The other starters, right.
And not with all the other bench players. So when you're one of these guys, you're put in with less quality around you, a group that doesn't have the same chemistry because you haven't played games together, it's hard to expect too much from them. And so CJ made some good runs, showed some good energy early on, but and like in a game like this where we're sitting back and trying to play on the counter, it's a game that leans a bit more to his strengths. And so I was like, okay, he's looking good, he's moving well, maybe we'll get something out of it, but it didn't play out that well. And I think it's Nico's right. Like, you can't fault him too much, or a lot of these guys too much, because I think there's some individual performances you can say were not good, but in the attack, especially, like when you don't have any of our best players out there feeding you the ball or playing combination off of, it's hard to criticize any of them too much.
Did you have any other particular moments or like guys you wanted to cover? I mean, the one thing I just have is like, we've talked about this already, but like ultimately, I think Austin starts a night in 6 and ends a night in 6. Like, it doesn't hurt very much in the playoff race. So it's just one to wash your hands of and move on.
Yeah. I want to say something quick about Djordjevic. I thought he, for the most part, looked pretty strong. There's some moments it would have been the second goal when I said that he followed Luna into the midfield. I think you probably could have been a bit quicker to follow him, a bit tighter, put a bit more pressure on him. We already talked about how much of a gap there was, and the forwards and the midfielders weren't doing him many favors there. But also, it's Diego Luna, and so take that with a grain of salt. But overall, I thought he was pretty strong, and solidifies my feeling even more that like this guy's going to be a good MLS center back to be able to be playing at this level so early in his time here in the country and at such a young age. Like I'm pretty excited about him.
And I guess also like there's the pending likely departure of Julio Cascante. So you want to have some faith in this guy that he can develop. And I don't think, even if Julio's gone at the end of this deal, like Austin still probably needs another fourth center back, but at least you've got 3 people you can count on.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's move on from this one. I think we've talked about it as much as we want to, or anybody needs to hear about, and we will look forward to the week ahead and some of the things we've previewed with Nashville, but like there's all the reasons to be excited. Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Sage Wilson Realty. The Sage Wilson team is made up of Austin experts who are client-focused and have over 30 years of combined real estate experience. Our friends at Sage Wilson are giving away 2 tickets to an upcoming match. You can fill out the form in the show notes for your chance to win.
If you or someone you know are in need of Sage real estate advice in Austin, talk to our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com.
And our premier sponsor is McGuire Woods Consulting, helping clients in the public affairs space from lobbying at the local, statewide, and federal levels to digital and communications campaigns across the country.
McGuire Woods Consulting has offices in 10 MLS cities, but only supports this podcast and this team because we're going to win the U.S. Open Cup final here in Austin on Wednesday. Contact our friends at McGuire Woods Consulting at mwcllc.com for more information. All right, we're going to talk about Brad Stuver's contract extension. We're going to talk about the St. Louis City preview this weekend. But first, the star of the show, the main event, the U.S. Open Cup preview versus Nashville. Jeremiah, where should we start here?
Let's just start with this one. So this one's Wednesday night. Let's talk about Nashville and sort of how they get to the final. So in the semifinal, Nashville goes up against Philadelphia and gets a Sam Surridge hat trick, goals with 36, 50, and 85 to send Nashville on through to the final. Austin gets to host because the Western Conference team, regardless of the outcomes or seeding, is going to be the host. But like Nashville comes in fairly hot in the tournament and decent in league play. So like there's all the reasons to think for this one. I think that this is going to be an Open Cup match, maybe like the last 2, where Austin is maybe not the better team on the night, but like has a chance in the moments that matter to like have that sort of killer instinct they've displayed and maybe pick up the victory.
Yeah, they've been hot in the tournament, and then the overall season has been fairly strong, but their last little stretch of league play has been pretty poor, and they've not been great. And then also just the Eastern Conference is so tough this year. I think they're on 52, 53 points, which in most years puts you towards the top of the table, and they're like still fighting for a playoff spot like right now. So the Eastern Conference is so tough right now, but this team, regardless of form or standing in the table, is a really solid team, just like top to bottom. They're solid all the way across, and then they have a few real difference makers in Sam Surridge, the striker, who's on I think like 23 league goals, and then a Hattie in the last cup game. Hani Mukhtar, which we're all very familiar with, and then Andy Nahar, like a guy who's been around the league. And then if you follow the U.S. national team playing in CONCACAF competitions against us, just like this really crafty, skillful right back, like those 3 difference makers alongside just like a really solid core of players everywhere else in the field makes them very difficult to play against.
Yeah, to that point, which I meant to get into a little bit more, that you're talking about the Eastern Conference. So Nashville is in 6 in the East, just like Austin is 6 in the West. But Nashville has got plus 16 goal differential as compared to what Austin's up to minus. Well, I guess they're back down to -6 now. But yeah, very different way that they played. 16 wins, 11 losses. So they're a really good and strong team.
And
that just
it's
kinda
not
deals with the conference.
I know like a lot of Austin fans were paying quite a bit of attention to Nashville in 2022 because of the MVP race between Mukhtar and Driussi. This is a pretty different looking team from what they were in those years. Like Nashville developed this reputation of really strong defensive team, hit you in transition. They can still play that direct game when it is presented to them, but they've been keeping a lot of the ball. Their coach is BJ, what's his last name?
Callahan, yeah.
Who is another was Berhalter's assistant, was the interim USA manager for a stretch when Berhalter was not renewed and then renewed. But anyway, comes from that tree, and so likes to keep the ball, likes to use the ball, and Nashville has done it really, really well this year, but never to the extent of keeping the ball for keeping the ball's sake. They will still cut you open with an incisive pass directly at times. And Surridge is just, man, he's really, really good. He's a tall, lanky guy. He moves well enough to get in behind a back line. He's not like a super speed demon, but moves well enough to do it, but is just so crafty in the box. His movement is so good. He's so smart, and all he needs is one touch to finish. And so our whole team, period, is going to have to be locked in for this one. But our back line, especially with Mukhtar and Surridge, as intelligent and as deadly as those two guys are attacking that back line, there's no room for error. I was watching through a bunch of Sam Surridge goals, and a lot of like one touch finishes just after really smart movement, but a lot of them are also just I've talked about that. I think it's Gary Lineker, his quote about it's not being in the right place in the right time. It's being in the right place every time. Sam Surridge has that, where Mukhtar puts in a shot and there's like a crazy save, but then Surridge just pops up out of nowhere and finishes the rebound. Like that's going to be the kind of focus Austin has to have on this night. Stuver can make a crazy save, but we need to be watching the follow-up. We need to be watching the second run, the second ball, and making sure we clean that up too, because Surridge will be there waiting to pounce on those kinds of things.
So do you think, is this a case for keeping it simpler and like going back to a back four so there's not as many moving pieces to sort of get disconnected? Do you think that that's something that we could see as a return to that tradition? Or, I mean, I guess it's two different questions. Would you do that? And do you think we will see that? And you can answer either or both of those however you want to.
So the way we set up against RSL, they play a back four, but they have pretty attacking fullbacks, which is kind of what Nashville do. Andy Nahar is going to get forward. Daniel Lovitz is on the other side. He's going to get forward. I kind of think it might be smart to stick with the back five here. And the way forward, the way to win this game, and it's maybe not the prettiest or the most fun way, but it's maybe the most effective way, is to play solid defense, try to hit them on the counter and hurt them there. And I think maybe the back five is the best shape to do that from with the personnel available. We're going to need Osman Bukhari to have a good night. We're going to need to give Osman Bukhari good service and keep the ball, play out of pressure, be able to get good balls into space for him and get out of our own half. It's not like defending is all good and well, but if we can't get out and then actually hurt them on the counter, that's going to be important. So I think Uzuni is going to be really important. Bukhari is going to be really important. And then Danny Pereira. If you watch Danny Pereira's performance against Minnesota, we didn't have a lot of the ball. He didn't do a ton on the ball. He did some, but he did so much dirty work, just like blue collar work in the midfield. He was so important there. And then when we did have the ball, he's so useful in helping keep it that we need him to have a really big game too. I think some of the questions here are who's ready to start? Who do you want to start? And I think especially like most of these questions are along the back line, right?
Yeah. That's going to be, that's what the questions are. So I think you almost have to go back to what we talked about early. Do you forgive like what we've seen at Beirut, lately, and like go with that? Or do you give Jean a chance? Do you and then also I don't love John Gallagher starting here because I want John Gallagher to be able to come in late when people are tired and he can just be fast and go do fast guy things. So like, hopefully he's not in the starting 11 on the night.
Yeah, I think left wing. Let's assume we're going back 5. The left wing back position at their peaks, I'm taking Biru, and so I think it's a matter of like how fit is he? How much does Nico trust him right now? Because, like I said before, Biru's ceiling is higher, but his floor is maybe lower. And Jean has been solid, so I would not be shocked to see Jean Kolmanich start this game. On the other side, is Dessler fit enough? They've been coy about it. They're not trying to give anything away. If he's healthy enough to start, I think you have to start him, because you have to remember you might be playing for 120 minutes, not just 90 minutes. And so let's say you start John Gallagher, you play him 70, you put Dessler on, he goes 40, and then he's injured, and you have to make another sub for him after that. I think it's safer to start the better player and put your best foot forward. But then if he has to come off, you know it early, and you can plan your subs around that for the rest of the game.
And you know John Gallagher can run as long as you need him to run. Like he's not going to come out.
Exactly. Center back is another spot where, because Svatak came back from international duty and was tired, he didn't start that game in Minnesota. And so it's been kind of quite a bit of rotation among those 3 center backs. If I'm picking the 3 center backs I trust the most to defend this Nashville attack, I'm picking Djordjevic, Heinzike, and Svatak. Those 3 guys, I don't think they've played together in a back 3 this year. So that's a little concerning in like the positions they played, because Julio Cascante has been playing in that middle spot. I think you could put Heinzike in the middle and put Djordjevic and Svatak on either side there, and it would probably still be fine, but you're losing a little bit of the chemistry that's been built over the last few games. Julio came up really big a couple of times in that Minnesota game especially, but I think there's been more times over the last few games where he's been a liability. I don't feel good about him tracking Surridge and Mukhtar in the box in this game. I will be nervous if he starts.
I mean, that is the thing that he seems least like positioned and capable to do, is deal with that kind of guy. So I think I have to agree with you on that one too.
Yeah. So some decisions to be made there. I think the rest of it, I mean, I'm going Ilya and Danny as the 2 central mids.
Yep.
And then if we're going that back 5, that takes one option out of like midfield forwards. I think you go Uzuni as the 9, Owen as that left tucked in winger, Bukhari as the right wing. And then you push the left wing back up as kind of the width and the height on that left side. Owen can play in the pocket there. And then Dessler will tuck inside and kind of play inside there, as Bukhari provides the width and the height on that right side.
And then you still have Diego Rubio as a guy in reserve who is pretty good at causing trouble in 25 or 30 minutes or however long he's going to get to.
Yeah, bring him on as and where you need to, because he's pretty flexible, and like the guys on the field, you could shift things around to find a way to get him into a spot that's useful.
Yeah, I think so. So let's talk about because I think we talked about this being sort of a week of celebration. So there's also like a pretty big pregame party here at Live Oak Park at the stadium. $4 beers, which is something I think people have been calling for during games, but it's fine. We'll take it at pregame. Beginning at 4:30 at Live Oak Park. $4 beers, couple. So there's a Latin funk band, Brownout, DJ Pelagrosa.
Brownout's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
It's a lot of guys. If you know, like Adrian Quesada, who is in Black Pumas, and he started Grupo Fantasma. It's a lot of guys from like his orbit, and so it's really cool, like Latin funk, big band stuff. So Brownout's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we got DJ Pelagrosa, we got food trucks, we got pickup soccer, we got Verdissimo, activity for kids, and more. It's definitely trying to create the kind of environment that honestly I wish, maybe it's because the team hasn't had like anything going on to have people celebrate in this way, but like that kind of party environment that, I wish we got a little bit more out of using that space before the game. Yeah,
for sure. And normally I'd be a little bit concerned about doing it on a Wednesday, but the crowd's going to be there. So I think it should be pretty well attended.
Well, let's go on to St. Louis City. I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on this one. It's Saturday. St. Louis is 13th in the West, negative 16 goal differential. It seems like a million years ago when St. Louis followed Austin and were like the new model for being the poster child for successful expansion franchises. They've kind of been a disaster the last couple of years. Over the last few matches, are 2 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. So they've been playing marginally better, but still not great. And Austin did beat them earlier in the year. So you never know really what to expect out of that. But this is another one, one that Austin needs to win or at least get points from.
Yeah, they fired their coach a while back, brought in a new guy who has kind of changed some stuff up and has them looking a little bit better, but still mostly not good enough and like a little bit too little too late. But one thing to be careful with is Marcel Hartel, who's a guy they brought in, I want to either last off season or maybe like halfway through the year before. I don't remember. He's not been around that long, but he's been really good since they've kind of shifted the way they've played and are playing him as more of a true 10. And so it's like they've been eliminated from the playoff contention. They're playing away. There's like these marginal moments we like to talk about where like the focus and the effort and the grit really matters. You shouldn't, like, this is still MLS. You shouldn't think you can walk into any game and think you're just going to walk through it and win, especially if you're Austin FC. But if you come in and like there's going to be, regardless of the result on Wednesday, there's probably going to be some hangover from it. But if you can come in and just like really put yourself into this match and like demand a win, it's there for you.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that Austin needs to take. And Austin's been taking advantage of that somewhat, right? With like they've picked up some of these, which is why the team is in a position where the loss on Saturday doesn't matter that much, and they are able to rotate because if they're doing like just enough to put themselves in a good space to not have to worry about it.
Yeah, a lot of this one is going to depend on what happens on Wednesday, right? So we're not going to speculate too much about what's going to happen. We do know Biru is going to be out on the yellow card suspension. Yep. He's eligible for Open Cup because it's a different competition, but he will not be eligible for this one. So I wonder if that plays into the starting 11 for the Nashville game at all, but we'll see. Let's get into the rest of the Austin FC news. Some moderately exciting stuff. I think some like moderate to fairly exciting here.
So I guess we'll start with the moderate. We get the final roster profile out that shows sort of where everybody in the league is on like available GAM, and some teams have a whole bunch, and some teams have almost none. Austin has $45,000 left. So yeah, Austin has no spare money laying around. And this is something we talked about off air, and we've talked about over the last few weeks a little bit in passing, and Roto's talked about this, but maybe explain sort of how Austin gets itself in this situation.
Yeah, so it's partially having to like dig yourself out of a hole from quite a few bad contracts that were on the books before. The point you were making off air is that there's quite a few guys on like these like mid-level salaries that are not like all that close to TAM even, but are still taking up quite a bit of your budget, and in turn, a lot of your GAM is probably going towards either the transfer or buying down their salaries or whatever. So I think that's part of it as well. But the point that Roto made, and the main difference in this team and a lot of the other teams that have a bunch of money, is we haven't sold any players.
Right.
We got that money for Driussi, but there's a bunch of complicated rules. So I don't want to get into it now, but essentially if you don't sell a DP for way more than you bought them for, you can't turn any of that into GAM. And so any of the sales we've made have not been able to convert into GAM, which leaves us with $45,000 when Minnesota has millions and some of the other team have millions in GAM. So like, this is one of the points Roto made, is like, we have to start selling players. And it opens up this question of like, we're all falling in love with some of these players and want to keep watching them play here, but also selling a guy like Owen Wolf, selling someone like Danny Ferreira or some of these other guys, that is how we get out of this hole and how we open up more space to bring in more players and have hopefully better seasons. And so it's going to be hard to watch these guys leave, but in the end, like that is what we need to do. That is how we build this club better and stronger.
Well, let's go on. And this is not going to, maybe not going to result in a lot, but the other news that we got this week is that Austin announced that the club and goalkeeper Brad Stuver agreed to a contract extension. So he's got a 2-year deal now guaranteed through the end of 2027. So this year and 2 more years with an option for 2028. So I realize he's played a lot, but I didn't quite realize this much. So he's played 176 of the 183 matches in the history of this club. So an Iron Man, probably going to break the record for like saves over the course of 5 years. You know, very happy to make this place his home. You know, he really talked about like on his part of it, connected with Austin and what it means to him. And so he seems ready to settle in for the long term. Does create the question. So like Damian Loss, he's hanging out, being pretty productive in USL. Like, is this a place where Austin is able to make a little bit of money?
Yeah. First, I want to cover myself a little bit I know in the buildup I said fairly exciting. I am very excited for Brad to sign an extension. I think maybe the lack of like being overly excited is just like, I didn't expect them to be chasing Brad off at any point in time. Yeah. So I'm like not super surprised by it. And I think that's where that comes from. But
it's consistent with your expectations, right? Really is right. That's what it is.
Yeah. If you can keep Brad Stuver around and he's still performing, which he is, like maybe his best season ever. Keep him here if you can. And so they're going to do that. Back to, you said Damian Loss. So there's always this question of like, okay, like when will Loss be ready? Do you try to transition away from Stuver at some point and bring in Loss? But Loss is still like just playing pretty well in USL for a really good USL team. The risk, like it's not a sure thing that if you bring him in, like he's the next guy. So it's not worth pushing Stuver out, like pushing out one of the best keepers in the league consistently for the last 5 years. Like you keep that guy. Which to the question of like, what do you do with Loss now? Loss is at an age where he needs to keep playing. And so I don't think you want to bring him in and just be a backup, but he probably doesn't want to just keep playing USL for too much longer. So I would guess Austin FC moves to the area of like listening to offers for him to actively shopping him and saying like, telling Loss and his agent, like, hey, find a team. We're going to try to do the same. Let's work together to try to make an arrangement that works for you and works for us. Cause they just extended him last year, I think. So I think there's like 1 or 2 more guaranteed years on his contract. So there's still some leverage to sell there. So I would not be shocked to see him make a permanent move elsewhere in the next 6 months to a year.
And it's a little bit of a chance to get some funds too, to free up some other capital for Austin FC to do other things. Not the same, obviously not what you're going to get from Owen Wolf or Danny Prayetta, but anything's positive.
Yeah, I would guess like at minimum like a few $100,000 for a USL goalkeeper like that, like maybe more, but at a minimum that, and like it's not millions, but it's something, and we need something.
It's progress. Yeah, and then I guess the other little bit of news is every year Austin has a gala, the 4ATX Foundation gala, to support their nonprofit. Had it last Thursday. Lots of pictures of the handsome boys looking handsome. Their handsome dates I don't know what. Their dates looking whatever. Not handsome, but fabulous. And they always give away like a sort of a community leader of the year and like a player leader of the year. This year it's Diego Rubio. Not surprised. Seems like a really good dude, and actually probably, somebody who really seems to love Austin and maybe would have had other options during the past offseason other than signing the really like club friendly deal that he did. So
so it's like good to remind folks he's on a supplemental roster spot right now because he wanted to be. He probably could have gone somewhere else and got a different option there, but he chose the longevity of the contract and chose to stay in Austin, which seems to be a guy who's like kind of digging into that and enjoying his time here.
Yes, we shall appreciate that. It's good to see him getting recognized.
If you want more takes on the outfits and deeper coverage of this event, Swoon Tower went deep into it on their most recent episode, so lots of coverage there. Jeremiah, anything else? What else should we cover here?
No, I think we've covered it all. Let's wrap it up and get ready for Wednesday night.
All right. Before we finish, we'd like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Sign up for the Patreon. And I think that's all. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week to review the U.S. Open Cup final, hopefully talking about a win in the U.S. Open Cup final. And then we'll review the St. Louis match and then preview the LAFC match and cover any other Austin FC news that pops up. Until then, I'm Landon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Think for nothing, you never.
La gente.
Oh my God.
Zula Chupa Boom sauce.
Yeah.